one thing, let me say about whether the Israelis have the right to the land or not. Not everybody that wants the Israelis to give up the land and give it back to Palestinians, not everybody that doesn't believe in the Zionist cause is an anti-Semite. But it's reasonable to say that everybody that is an anti-Semite is an anti-Zionist too. Everybody that hates Jews wants them to give up their land. So it's sort of like that, thing. Not everybody that's anti-Zionist is anti-Semite, but every anti-Semite I believe, is anti-Zionist. And one of the, oh man, it's just so complicated. You could kind of go like, let's just say almost every nation or occupied land, was taken away from somebody else. I mean, in America, we took it from the American Indians. In Australia, they took it from the Aborigines. And if you go way, way back in history, Britain was overrun by the Anglo-Saxons, at one point by the Vikings. And all these things contribute in the culture and the language. And so way, way back when, ancient history, the Jews were there in that land, which is now, Israel. And the Romans basically at one point just said enough's enough and kicked their butt and drove them out and gave it to the Palestinians. And if the Palestinians could hold their ground, they held it. But at some point, due to the political atmosphere after World War II and the whole thing with Nazi Germany, killing 3 million Jews, and I understand they killed a lot more than Jews. They killed Poles and stuff, but a lot of that was happening in Russia too. I'm just talking about Germany. But there were gays and mutated people. I don't know to use mutated, but people with birth defects. People were put to death. Hungarians, not Hungarians. I mean gypsies. So. Granted, after the political climate, the Zionism got a foothold, and the Israelis were given that land, and they were able to hold on to it. They were able to fight back and hold on to it. So, I don't know. But then again, there needs to be more humane treatment of the Palestinians. These people really suffered. It's like this giant concentration camp. And but and then again, I can remember when, a bomb would go off in a cafe in Israel and just kill a bunch of people. And, think how we as Americans would feel. There's Americans that want to seal up the border because they feel a threat from the Mexicans crossing it. They think that the crime is rampant and they blame them. And sure, criminals cross the border. But if some Americans got their wish and sealed off the border, how different is that? Well, I guess it's not such a great comparison, but, if Mexicans were blowing up stuff, you know that if a flotilla of Mexicans try to come across the border, man, we'd drop we'd invade them and drop guys from lines and helicopters and the whole thing. I don't know. They'd be opening fire on them. Come on. America's a gun culture, right? So, anyway, I found this, and another thing, it's like, Al Brookman showed a clip of Helen Thomas just saying the most simplistic thing. We could solve all this problem if just Israel would just give back the land to Palestine. And sure, that's one solution. But it isn't going to happen. And the thing is, both of them, Muslims and Jews, believe Old Testament eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And that's the whole thing why Jesus Christ was so controversial, because he was saying, look, try to forgive these people. Try to forgive your enemy. Try not to, I hit you, I'm going to hit you back. I hit you, I'm going to hit you back. I hit you. That's why the problem will never be solved unless there's some sort of religious reformation or something. And Jews and Christians have gone through reformations, but Islam hasn't. Not a major one. And maybe, I'm going to say, point the finger at Islam. You guys need to change. But I do feel sorry for the Palestinians. They need to be treated more humanely. And it's a classic example of when the oppressed become the oppressors. And now on to my next, and it's so funny that the Palestinians and the Jews I mean, at least from that area, you can't really tell the difference between them. They're all children of Abraham. And I don't know if you know the Old Testament, but Abraham couldn't get his wife Sarah pregnant, so he took an Egyptian slave girl. Then, by a miracle of God, Sarah became pregnant after the Egyptian girl was pregnant, and so he had two sons. And the one that was by the Egyptian slave became the Arab, what is now the Arab race, and or the Arab whatever. I don't know if they're considered a race. I'm not sure. And so they both came from Abraham's loins. Of course, Sarah didn't want that other kid around, or the Egyptian slave girl, so she asked Abraham to drive them away. But then God saved them, in the desert. They didn't die. So I've always thought it's a weird analogy. In this one movie that depicts it, she's about ready to die. She has her son with her, and then a miracle happens, and this water starts like pumping out of the sand. And I always thought that seemed like also that water coming out of the sand could also be oil. I mean, that was a big thing that made the Middle East powerful. All those oil companies made them rich.